Welcome back to the Real Deal Investing Podcast. I'm Larry Mastropieri. I'm also a broker here in South Florida. I'm joined by Jerron Kelley, my co-host, who's a real estate attorney here in South Florida. And our guest today is Scott Kidd, and we'll just get right into it. We're here to talk about all the cool things that Scott's up to. Let's start with your background, Scott. Super interesting.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me here. My professional background is I've been a yacht captain for over 20 plus years based in South Florida. But in the last 4.5, 5 years, I've gotten into multifamily real estate and self-storage syndications. And
which is why we're here today.
Yeah. And recently, my recent venture is that I've gotten into e-commerce and starting a fund for that. A little bit about me is, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, syndications for about 4+ years. Mostly what I focus on is raising capital and investor relations.
We started to get to know each other, I think, when you first were getting into this, right? You and I were chatting just about like, hey, I'm looking for some deals to do. Yeah. How can you help me? Because I was a broker and you were just starting to talk to all different brokers. And I kind of gave you like, hey, this is how I'm doing things, but, you know, I'm here to help. And then, you know, we just stayed in touch over the years. But let's talk about your background in the yachting world, because I mean, you're the real deal.
Well, I've been been thankful and blessed that it's brought me to a lot of different places in the world and met a lot of amazing and successful people for good, bad, and in different reasons. It's taken me to a lot of places, much like now real estate as well, has taken me to all these places that never really even thought about. And there's a lot of commonalities between those two things, yachting and real estate and just business in general.
When you're working for these high net worth individuals and or you're meeting them, so you'll go to a port of call in the Bahamas or in, you know, New England or Newport or these places, and you're hanging out and hobnobbing with the blue bloods and the rich. Do you find that to be inspirational anyway, or not inspirational,
or educational?
Educational.
Yeah.
Well, it can go a lot of different ways, but I'm always listening. I've picked up a lot of things over the years from these men and women. A lot of them are really successful. It really just depends on the group that you're with. Some of them, they want you to be more involved. Some of them, you're kind of just in the background. You're, that type of thing.
What would you say, what are your key takeaways from spending time with these people? What did you learn from those experiences? Or
for the most part, most of these guys are very obsessive. Like you and I would probably, you have an issue and you probably just eventually go to sleep and say, all right, tomorrow's another day. A lot of these guys, the common thing that I've found is that they will just stay on it until they get it done, or they'll find somebody to get it done.
Relentless, tenacious, obsessive.
Obsessive, and I fortunately and unfortunately have some of those traits.
That's same. I think all of us are same.
To some extent, I find that I agree 100%. The most successful serial entrepreneurs I've met, and I work for one gentleman that was worth well over $200 million, and met several people through him that were 100 millionaires and billionaires, and I've got several clients that are like that too. It is that obsessive. It's relentless. It's like a relentless drive, and sometimes it's not always for the positive. Sometimes you see it for the negative side too. That they get obsessed about one little detail of a deal, or someone on their team that they just want to drive out of the office, and they're obsessive about it. So I've noticed that too.
I say this often, like your greatest strength can be your greatest weakness, right? And that's an example of that. And living here in South Florida, we've spent time in the yachting world with these people too, and just spending time with them. It's definitely something I've noticed too.
Yeah, it's definitely an obsession. And the other thing that I would say that differentiates them which is very common on the boats too, is that they're great at building teams. They're great at getting other people that are really good at and talented at certain things And that's what helps them get from, the solopreneur to, multi-leveled entrepreneur, multi-businesses, because it's very common also on the boats, because if you can't build a great team, the boat doesn't go anywhere. If you can't build a great team, the business goes nowhere. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to take it all on yourself and micromanaging everybody, you can't get past yourself.
And you're always going to have tons of turnover. So whether it be on a boat, if they have 2 or 3 staff members, you see that, just constant turnover. I've seen that as well for those that are not good at building teams, but those that are, are a little more open to delegating. And
I would equate it to the same person that has been married and divorced multiple times. At a certain point, it's not them, it's you.
Yeah,
exactly. That's right. Yeah.
When we're in our respective businesses and thinking about building teams, I think that's very true. What I've learned is, getting the right people. I mean, changes everything. And through interviewing and just trying to figure out, what's the right amount to spend for the right person. Yeah. And because for example, we just went through working on hiring a marketing director, and some people are willing to take a low number and other people are just like astronomically high, but man, their skill set and their ability to execute is very different. And I think through that process of like building this team, I've learned so much about how much that matters. And some of the choices we make sometimes are good, and we learn by saying, oh my gosh, like we made the best decision here, this was good. And then other times I think it's like, yeah, we made the wrong decision. Yeah. But
it is uncanny how human beings in the marketplace of their of work, the work marketplace, but also we could equate this to like the dating marketplace too. We have an uncanny ability to figure out where we stand in that pecking order. And it's rare that you're ever going to find someone that deserves $150,000 salary based on their skill set and their work ethic, but that is willing to accept $75,000. And sometimes you'll have the opposite, where someone wants some extraordinary number and their resume doesn't call for that. They may be delusional, but generally I find that you get what you pay for, and I've learned that in all of our hiring as well. When we've brought in someone that's at a low salary amount. Maybe they end up being good, but we have to put a lot of time into training them as well. So
So just for the people who are watching, so you captain a 50-meter boat, 150 foot,
164. So we have right now we have 11, 12 crew, but some of them are rotational. Myself, engineer, chef, or rotation. We work roughly 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off. But the team is really getting back to that. That's the most important thing. What we've found, and what I've found over the years, same thing in any business, is that the skill set is not so much important as the right fit. Because if the personality conflicts, if someone's there fighting with everyone and they have all the skills in the world, you're not going to get anything done.
I've noticed that. Yeah. So I'll give you a quick example of this. You'll appreciate this. So Jerron and I share the same property manager, and my fiance is a general contractor and interior designer here locally. And so she's got her crew. Our property manager has his crew. And I've tried to be like, oh, I really love this guy that our property manager is using. Dana, my fiance, hey, you should use him. Use him, give him some more work, right? And then we put those two together. Doesn't work. And vice versa. You take some good guys from Dana's crew and you say, Aaron, go ahead, our property manager, use these guys, put them in play. They're great. You're going to like them. That it's just a communication thing. It's a personality thing. And even though these two guys are great, or these different people are great in their respective roles elsewhere, when you mix and match, it just doesn't happen. Yeah. It's crazy.
There's also what I call, there's a certain personality type, and I see it periodically coming on board different teams that I am aware of, that friends or entrepreneurs, or I've seen it on my team as well, and I call them agents of chaos. Mm-hmm. And they come in and they're Tasmanian devils, and like you said, many times, oddly enough, they are of a high skill set, and that's the way they survive, is because they are so good at what they do, and otherwise they'd be fired immediately because of their antics. And it's always, as a manager, it's always hard to decide
Sure.
If you do want to let them go because they are so competent at their job. So the competency kind of outweighs the chaos that they bring to the team, but it's tough.
Yes.
Those are always the hard ones to
skills can
part
be
ways
taught.
with.
You know, skills can be taught. Temperament is a little bit tougher.
It
Can't
is.
really teach that. That's something someone has to surpass or work on.
Yeah.
Especially if they're a hothead or they're very introverted and they're not very good at communicating. I've had people that were really good, but they were poor at communicating. It usually comes down to that, whether someone is a high skill set and like you said, agent of chaos. But if they got a high skill set, they're still not very good at communicating what they want, what the expectation is for everyone else, especially if they're in a leadership position.
Yeah.
And the longer you keep those people in play, it's even harder to get rid of them because they just develop so much internal knowledge of the business. It's like they're getting better.
Institutional knowledge.
Yeah, that's my point. So,
but then it can also, the bad part is it really can drive away the good ones.
Exactly.
The other ones that are also of a high skill set that are more calm and, but people who have the right mindset, they don't want to be around that for long term. So, sometimes it's hard to cut that cancer out.
Yeah, all the good apples go away and you're stuck with the rotten.
With the rotten one,
yeah, and even like for me on the sales team side, it's like if you have one guy that's like not performing and you don't have this like massive this group that's performing, it like everybody starts to kind of perform less.
Yes.
So it's a real problem. That's a big thing that we're like trying to figure out. Like, how do we get a sales team that really jives and really brings that high energy and competes with each other, friendly competition? Like, oh man, X just did this many deals this month, and it shows and it demonstrates. Well, this system works that Larry's created because he's doing X or she's doing X, and I can get there. And so you need that balance, and I think. Sometimes for me personally, it's hard to get to where I'm at right now because we need more people in the roles to make that happen.
I think if you have a good system in place and you have good people in place, one person is down, they'll all lift each other up and go, hey, try this. They won't be trying to step on and outcompete each other. They'll be like, hey, as a group, we can do 10x more than we are. And especially on the boats, because we all also have to live together.
That's what I was going to say. This is way more intense for you.
If someone has a personality conflict, it's because we have heads of department and stuff like that. We have usually the deck department, which is the chief officer, the galley department, which is the chef, the interior department, which is the chief stewardess, and the engineering department is the engineer. But and there's a leadership in each one of those, and they all have to communicate with each other. And one of my main things is don't make your problems mine. Because if it is a problem and it's small, I don't want to hear about the little dramas. Go to your superior and say, hey, we have an issue with this. We need to work it out. If they can't work it out and it comes all the way up to me, then I have to work it out for you. And generally, they don't like the solution I come up with.
Yeah.
Sometimes that solution is one less team member.
Mine's going to be quick, or two, or three, or whatever. Because
sometimes you have to clean house.
Because if all those people don't get along, it's detrimental for the team.
If you are, let's say you said that you told us offline that you were in Alaska recently, and the boat was coming back from Alaska down British Columbia. But let's say you had a problem. And you wanted to exit two of the team members, you then communicate with your team here in Florida to find two new substitute team members to fly out there, and then you let them know, and then you just pull into the port and say goodbye, thank you?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Usually we try to ride it out until we're going to the next
big,
place.
Big port.
But usually, because we've myself and the other captain, we have extensive networks, and other people we were involved with have pretty extensive networks. Since it's a small, relatively cottage industry, we kind of expand our networks first because we want to get somebody we know. Same thing you do in business. You want to deal with people that you know, like, and trust.
Sure.
So basically we go out with those networks first, and if we find somebody, then the next place we have a plane ticket, and they usually have a couple hours to get off the boat because you don't want them hanging around too long, especially if they don't want to be there. You know, it's just really detrimental to everyone else. It can be such a big negative pull down to everyone.
Got it.
You know, and even if you have to run with a lighter crew for a little bit, you'd be surprised at how much better everyone else is. Especially if
they'll step up.
Everyone's moving away from these people and avoiding them.
Got it.
You can't have a cohesive team if
they're not productive anyways. At that point,
people are avoiding people.
So that I mean speaks to, you know, you've taken those skill sets and those experiences and translated them into real estate and the e-commerce business. I mean, you got to build teams, you got to network, right? So when I don't actually know the answer to this, so how has it been over the past 4 years? Like, how are you doing with the syndication? Where's it going?
Well, I'm currently raising capital for a couple of new self-storage developments, and that's a recent development. Just kind of diversifying into other asset classes, just because I've always liked self-storage, and it's when you don't have any tenants, and it's less complex, but it has its other complexities as well. But for the most part, it's been multifamily. We closed on a 65 unit earlier this year. I was helping raise capital for a deal in Houston and a deal in Oklahoma. I'm doing our investor relations there, but those two didn't close, as it happens sometimes. But I chalk it up all as a new learning experience, because last year was kind of a tough year for a lot, with all the rates going up and inflation being high and everything else. But the way I look at it is, I've never been one to kind of step down from a challenge, because if this is the hardest time to raise capital and put deals together, when I do it now, it's going to make it easier when it booms again.
And you'll be ready.
Yeah.
So syndication is let's define that for the group, and then I want to hear how you started and how you kind of put this together, and what's basically where you're at now. You kind of mentioned.
Well, basically, syndication is basically a few people getting together to buy a larger property, where we all pool our money together. You have general partners, which run the deal and which they do all the operations, and the limited partners, they put in the money, and they're really kind of hands-off, passive for the most part. And the GP, depending on what the split is between the investors, and it can be a range of a lot of different things. Basically, everybody pools their resources together, and you have, on the GP team, you have acquisitions, you have capital raisers, you have people that organize the loan, because it's really, when you get to the commercial level, it's a team effort. You can't really do it all yourself. If you try to, you're probably not going to do it well. And so everyone has to have segmented duties, and that's basically it in a nutshell, everyone pooling their money together to buy a larger property.
So how did you get the first opportunity to basically work with the team to help them raise capital? And I'm guessing then you earned your right to have a GP position, and maybe you put some money into the deal as well?
Yes, on the first couple of deals, I brought some money and I raised some money.
Okay.
And before that, I did a couple of joint ventures, joint ventures is basically the same thing as a syndication, except for everyone's an active participant. Like myself and us three here, we've seen an apartment we want to buy. We each put in X amount of money, and we close on
straight clean splits.
Yeah, straight clean. Yep. And I might be doing the property management. You might be doing outsourced, resourcing a lot of the other things, the loan. You might be doing other things like finding the tenants or what have you. We all have split duties, but we all have to be active, or it's not it's technically more of a syndication. So you have to be very careful with that with the SEC.
And typically what I've heard is joint ventures should be about 5 partners or less. Typically,
yes.
That's kind of the IRS rules are around that. And then there's, of course, with a JV, there's no GP LP split is what we're saying. Everyone has equal equity in it.
Everyone has, or not necessarily equal
whatever they bought in
whatever
for.
the split is
whatever the
based
split
on
is,
there.
right. Exactly.
But What I found,
there's no sweat equity.
Yeah,
right.
what I found with the joint ventures, it's good to have an odd number of people, especially when it comes to the operating agreement.
For voting.
You have certain amount of votes for each one, so that way you can have majority rule if you want to sell it.
Yeah.
If one partner is not a right fit, then you can sell it, you can refinance it, you can do those things as long as you have the majority
Smart.
decision.
So either 3 or 5.
3 or 5.
Yeah, it's typically
that makes
the best
sense.
numbers.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's a good point.
It's
So those were the first deals you did. You JV'd on two
on
deals.
a couple different,
Yeah.
8 unit and a 13 unit.
Where were those at?
One was in West Palm Beach, the 8 unit, and the 13 unit we still have is in Port Orange, which is near Daytona.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And that one's going great. Great partners. And actually, the partner that brought me in, she brought me in for the 8 unit, and we, in 8 months, we ended up selling that one just because the timing was right and everything else, and it ended up being a bigger lift than we anticipated. And we all were kind of not necessarily on the same page, so it just made sense.
Was it a profitable deal when you exited?
Yes, we all probably 3x or more money in
Great.
8 months.
In 8 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
Giddy up.
When we sold it right before the rates went up, May 31st, 2021.
Okay.
So-
Great. Good timing.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah.
You know, you get a break,
Sure.
and that opened it up to me being able to put some of that money into some of these syndications.
Did you
And
1031 some of the money or no? You
No, I
took it
just
out?
went
Okay.
straight into
Got it.
these other deals because I wasn't sure what I was going to do at that point. And I kind of, with the way that one was, it was a huge amount of work. And I realized that I don't really want to be as active, especially working on the boats. You know, I was sometimes the contractor. It was during COVID. The contractors, some of them didn't show up. You know, some of them didn't even call back or anything. So myself and the partners were there late at night. You know, I'm driving to the boat early in the morning. I'm there 5 in the morning checking stuff. I'm going there on the way home. You know, all that stuff. So it's like there's got to be a better way.
Burning
So-
the candle at both ends. You can only do that for so long.
Yeah, and we did it because we had to, and it worked out fine. You know, I'm one of those whatever it takes kind of people. You just do it.
Yep.
And you just gut it through, and then you get done.
You learn your lessons.
Reassess later. You know, and so I started focusing more on the capital raising and investor relations, asset management, because I can do that from anywhere. And I know a lot of people want to do real estate, so I want to get away from their other job. I love what I do. I love being a captain. I love being on the water. And and I love real estate too. So I'm going to do both of them until they tell me I can't. You know, and so with that, that's how it kind of transitioned into that. So I started, you know, doing more networking, which I highly recommend to anyone, no matter what you're doing. There's a group for it. Go find them on Facebook. Go find them on social media. Go find them in your local area. If there's not one, make one.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's part of the value of this podcast, right? We get to meet a whole bunch of people.
yeah.
For me, it's been valuable. It's been great. Besides, and it helps us build our network because people get to watch these videos and get to know us a little bit too. But I agree with that. That's huge. And there's so many local investor networks.
Yes.
And if you get in with those guys, you'd be surprised at what you could do.
And there's something to be said about just keep showing up, show up often, show up early.
Yep.
You know, and just keep showing up.
That's a thing.
That's the thing. If you're consistent with anything else, just keep showing up, keep talking to people. You're going to learn. You're putting yourself in the room with people that are doing this stuff already. So eventually you'll be doing it.
You know, I go to those local brick meetings with.
That's the Boca Real Estate Investor Club. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
With David Dweck.
Yep. And so David's a great dude. And I've taken away just pieces of like just tactics on marketing from
Yes.
these guys that are just standing up talking about, you know, some of the things they're doing. The last one I was at, I took some strategy from one of the guys that was just talking, and he, you know, it was like, you know, 10 seconds. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me go look into that. Pulled it, executed on it, and it's working. You know,
That's awesome.
so it's just even like when it's not exactly. So I'm obviously an investor. I call my day job being a broker, which is the real job. Your day job is being a captain. Your day job is being an attorney, and then we're investing in real estate, and that's the side hustle, right? So even if like I'm at that brick investment meeting for like the side hustle purposes, the synergies are great, you know, and you can really apply.
Well, I'll give you an example. Is Larry brought me a possible flip deal. I'm not really a flipper. That's not really my core competency. I'm an attorney first during the day, 8 to 5. But then I love multifamily. I'm kind of a long-term investor. Also want to be working in syndication when the time is right, you know, when rates come down a little more. But I've done a couple flips before, but Larry brought this to me and mentioned it and said, hey, I found a property up in Palm Beach Gardens, good price. A lot of work to do, though. It's filled with mold. The roof had a lot of leaks in it. And so I went to the property and I brought my good friend who does professionally do flips. And I said, you know, is this something that you'd be interested in? I ran some numbers. My buddy Chris also ran some numbers, too. We compared numbers. It looked like there was a lot of meat on the bone. We pulled the trigger on it, bought it in September, put $125,000 into it, bought a property for $400,000, and then we sold it in early January for $775,000. We made $182,000 divided by 2, so 91 each in 4 months. Nice. Not bad. But my point in saying all that is not bragging, but it's my connection with Larry. I'm just showing up, and he's bringing this to my attention, and then I brought on a partner and was able to do a flip that made some nice money in a short period of time. It's not my core competency, but being there, showing up, you know, kind of networking and having those opportunities and seizing those opportunities when they
every
come
opportunity in front of you. I've received has been from networking. You know, when I first heard about apartments and multifamily, it was actually a friend of a friend. He was here in Fort Lauderdale, and we were having some drinks on the beach, and he told me the story. He had this 46 unit that he bought and sold in Houston, Texas, and he made like a couple of $1 million. And I said, "You can do that?" I said, "Yeah, you can do that. I did it. I'm not. Yeah. I'm nobody. I figured it out. I did it. Me and my brother." And I was like, that was kind of my aha moment. And then I started going to all the meetups, and you know, I got a little discouraged at first because it was at the time where there were so many meetups, and every one of them kind of funneled you to the back of the room. And it's probably around when I met you. They funneled you to the back and get on a call, buy our course, buy this, and then it's like, oh. And then I went, and I said, well, let me just go to one more. And I went to another one. I went in Fort Lauderdale, and it was actually my partner that we bought the 13 unit with.
Awesome.
I met her and her husband and everybody there. They were just hanging out, talking about real estate, having some drinks, eating some food, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I can do this. And had I not gone to one more, and you know, he said, keep showing up, and met her, and we're still partners to this day.
That's great.
And you know, if you're planning to get into multifamily or anything else or syndications, you know, I strongly encourage people to maybe go and be an LP first, where you just put the money in and watch the deal. Get with somebody that's going to teach you how the whole deal works before you jump in with 2 feet, because all it takes really is one bad deal for you to really get turned on your head. And you're seeing that happen right now.
So just to reiterate, first deal, if you're interested in being a part of a syndication, be an LP. Put whatever the funds you have, the minimum down, or whatever it is. If it's $50,000 or
that's just having to do it over again. And that's what I did first initially. And I would just so you get the education process, you know, so you understand how it works. Although if you have a great deal and you have a team with you, somebody that's willing to bring you in and show you all those things, I didn't have that. So and a lot of people don't. Yeah. So maybe go that avenue. But if you have a GP team that's solid, they'll teach you. By all means, jump in, you know, and follow them. Because
and I've also learned that sometimes, exactly piggybacking off what you said there, is if you have a good GP team and they're warm and welcoming, especially on the fundraising side, you might have a network. You might know 10 high net worth individuals, and they may want that, and they're willing to give you a piece of the GP that they have set aside for fundraising, even if you're not a professional fundraiser, you're not super confident in what you're doing, you really just need to make the introductions to get them on a webinar or whatever it might be to say, hey, could I get 30 minutes of your time to speak to a guy about a great investment that I really truly believe in and I'm going to be a part of? A lot of times people will say yes to the 30 minutes, and they'll give you a piece of the GP split.
Usually you can either bring the deal or bring some money.
Yeah.
If you know people with money, that's a good thing. And a lot of people don't have people with money, and they say you can buy real estate with no money, but generally most everybody here, we all saved up some money, put some money in. There's hardly any, maybe we got, we found an opportunity where you only had to buy in 10 or 20,000 after '08 or what have you. But generally, you do need money to be in the game because you have to have skin in the game, or else there's a trust factor there that if you don't have money in the deal, it's going to be hard to bring other investors in.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, you need to find that crazy, amazing deal in order to pull that off where it's just obvious, right?
Yeah. And even seasoned guys have never done that.
Right, it's really, really improbable. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there are ways, and what we've successfully done is we've done what you call the Burr method, but that takes some initial capital, right?
Yes.
You got to and then you get your money back out, and okay, now you're
you're moving,
you're rolling,
moving the money and money.
Yeah.
And then you're using kind of other people's money, using the bank's money.
Exactly.
With debt, which, used to be, I was raised, that's bad.
Yeah.
You got to pay everything off. But nowadays environment, it's, debt's kind of more of an asset now. If you can leverage a lot of things, you can buy more assets, and then you can get more leverage, you can buy more assets. And as long as they're cash flowing, it's a good deal. There are bad debt. There's like a lot of credit cards, buying a bunch of cars and boats and material things that aren't returning you
yachts
any money.
With captains.
Yeah. Yachts with captains. I'm a total loss for my boss. All day, every day.
I get it. Yep. That's a calculated loss. When he's staring at the Alaskan wilderness, he's okay with the loss.
As I'm walking by, he's like, how much does this guy cost?
He sees you in stacks of $100 bills.
Money.
Doesn't even see your
Telling
face.
his guests, this guy, 6 figures. That's in the trash. Gone.
Light it on fire.
Yeah, good stuff. And tell us about that 65 unit deal. Are you're still in that?
Yes, we're still in that. That one we just paid our first distribution in January.
Well, let's back up though. What is it? Where is it?
It's a 65 unit in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. Again, that was networking. I joined Michael Blanc's mastermind a few years ago, and just started networking within the group, and I also met other people that I've invested in their deals. And the same person, fast forward, I guess that would be 3 years, he was looking for people to help raise money, do investor relations and asset management, just kind of and do other things to help get the deal across the finish line. He called me, and because I have kept in touch with him, and he said, well, I have this deal. We're under contract. We're going. I see you were raising for this deal in Houston. That was one of the deals that didn't go through. And he said, well, let me know what you're doing after that, and then, we'll talk. And long story longer, he invited me in, and I'm on the GP team. It's 65 units. It's Class C plus in the northwest of Charlotte, which it's C plus in a B plus area. It's Charlotte's booming. You have Bank of America, you have Wells Fargo there, you have a lot of company headquarters. Honeywell is there. Yep. And it's a great place to live. Rents are are livable. Housing is affordable.
Unlike South Florida.
Yeah, unlike a lot of places nowadays. And it's you're an hour or so from the mountains.
The weather's nice.
3 hours from the coast. Yeah. It's a mild climate in winter and summer.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a a lot of things kind of came together at that point, and we got it across the finish line.
You were fundraising for it? Was that your role?
I was raising money, doing investor relations, and
Okay.
I helped out with a few other things on there because you can't just raise capital in these syndications unless you're a broker dealer. You have to have a license for that. And I myself am not licensed, so there's other things that I helped out with as far as on the team.
Okay.
But
Great.
it's a
How many investors were there? Did you have total?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I wouldn't want to
guesstimate 30, 20, 50? You're not sure?
Probably 20 or 30.
20 or
'Cause
30,
The
okay.
capital raise was $3.5 million, so
Okay.
somewhere around there.
Got
Maybe
it.
their average was probably about 100,000.
Okay. What was minimum? 50?
The minimum was 50.
Okay. That's
And,
kind of,
I
normally I find minimums are
I
50
put
or
money
100.
in there as well.
Okay.
And
Good.
it's it was a light value add, and because of everything going on last year, that's kind of been my focus is light value add, because I was seeing a lot of construction, especially with our 8-unit construction got paused for a while. Contractors didn't show up, supplies didn't show up.
We were just talking about that earlier today.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of smoothed out a little bit. It's depending on what type of products
Yeah.
you're looking for.
Sure.
But this one is basically a dust up from what I would call is just paint and fixtures, and they already had that stuff on order, and none of the units need any kind of major rehab. There's the larger thing was some of the electrical needed to be upgraded, some of the aluminum wiring needed to be updated.
Okay.
But so that's a decent size amount, but it's I believe a late 60s construction, so that's quite common.
Mm-hmm.
And there's processes for that, and the city's aware of that, and they're very in tune with those type of things. And
Okay, great.
it's one of those things where if you work with the city and stuff like that, and people around you, it makes it a lot easier. It's all communication. But that one's going well. And
What does your pro forma on that look like as far as an exit strategy for investors? Is it like 3-year, 5-year?
that one's the initial prognosis was after the value add, which is going to be about 18 months.
Okay.
And we closed, I believe, July last year, so end of this year. Refinance, pull about 80% of the investors' money out, and hold it for up to 5 or longer.
Got it.
Depending on what the terms are going to be at the end of this year. We don't, not really sure. But
Sure.
it was a bridge loan, 8% fixed,
Okay.
interest only. So, and it cash flows.
For 18 months?
Yeah. No, it was 3 years. 3 years.
3-year bridge.
With a 1 year extension.
Okay.
It's actually 8% is not bad for a bridge
At that moment in time. Yeah.
And this was last year.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
No, and
3 years too. A lot of times bridges are a year to 2 years.
That's
so.
why I asked.
we had a lot of people say, 8%, and it's like, yeah, but the deal works at 8%. It doesn't matter if it's 10% or
Exactly.
12% or 20%.
If the deal works,
if
it works. Yeah.
It works. And then if you're at 10, 12%, chances are you're going to refi into something probably smaller.
What's your pro forma rate of return, IRR?
Cash on cash is about 10%.
That's
Wow.
It's pretty good.
it's great for South Florida.
Because the rents were
Yeah.
the rents were already there was about a $200 premium after doing the value add,
Okay.
but there was about a $75 premium without doing anything.
Okay.
So that's why I was able to cash flow.
There was some skin on the
Some
table
skin
already.
already,
Yeah.
and
Skin in the game.
the IRR I believe is around 18, 19.
Great.
It might be
That's-
more.
Anything
seems
over
like
15 is, you're killing it.
Yeah,
so.
I think the
That's a
rents
deal.
have gone up. That they were before they even started. They were already bumping the rents without doing a lot of the value add. So
Great.
they're only on turnover if the unit needs it now. So the expenses are lower. So the returns could come in quite a bit higher.
And one of the great things for you, because you are so busy, because you have what is your schedule with the boating? Is it 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off?
Yes, roughly
More or less,
Yes,
give or
more
take.
less.
Could be slightly, but so there's periods of time where yes, you can be on your computer if you're in Alaska or whatever on a yacht because you have internet access, but still you're not able to be there at the property. So
Yes.
I'm assuming there's a part of the team that's running the management portion of this.
Yes, there's boots on the ground. There's a lady that she lives like 20 minutes from the property, and she's She's involved in a couple other deals in the Charlotte area, so she knows the area.
Good.
She has, you know, a lot of people in her
Vendors
portfolio
and,
of people. She has contractors
Good.
and everyone else. And she's very, she's great at communicating. She lets everybody know what's happening, good, bad, or indifferent, which I think that's very important for everyone. That's a good tip is good, bad, or indifferent, you know, whether it's in business or in your life, just talk about it.
Communicate.
If it's a problem, it'll be a bigger problem if you don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's back to your point. If you wanted to do this type of deal on your own, first off, just like showing up with the cash, very difficult. Second, raising the cash, and then also securing the deal itself, finding it, sourcing it, knowing that it's a good deal. It's hard. That's like, there's so many core competencies there that you need in order to make that happen.
And then once you close on it, that's when the real work begins. You know, then you have to operate the property.
Yeah.
You have to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to manage the manager. You have to manage the tenant. You know, there's just so many variables that go into it. So, again, it goes back to building the team, you know. If you have a good team, then, you know, a good team can make a bad deal be great. Same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And that all starts with just hanging out with people that are trying to achieve the same goal, right? So the networking groups, and that makes sense. That's great. So you also started a networking group yourself, right?
Yes, I did. I started about, actually it's 2.5 years ago now. Yachting Real Estate Investors. Originally started it to, you know, because there's so many people on yachts that have money just sitting there and they don't know what to do with it. Some of them just blow through it. They don't know what to do with it. And I did that when I was young too. So I mean, I can't blame them. But you know, that's how it originally started. But it ended up just kind of growing into just you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, just mainly like-minded people that want to do things. And I've recently, last year, I combined with SoFlo Network, which is actually they've changed their brand to Like-Minded, and they're now in, I think, 15 different cities. So I myself, I do the ones in Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and Stewart. I just started in Stewart. Actually, had a meetup last night. And
that's right. I got your message. Yep.
Yeah, and the one in Fort Lauderdale at Yacht Bar is on Thursday.
That's
we've
cool.
We've had up to 90, 100 people.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's usually about 50 people.
And again, you just, you know, you started this 2.5 years ago. You just kept chipping away.
Yeah.
Just kept, you know, setting up these meetings.
Yeah. It's just really, it's consistency and just like show up early, keep showing up, and show up often. Just keep being there. And then I met, you know, my partners there, Eric and Bobby. We were having meetup groups at the same time, and it's relatively the same people. We said, well, let's just all do it in the same spot at the same time, and we all, you know, and it's helped us all, really.
Sure.
It's because we're all like-minded. Hey, let's grow the group and bring, you know, people. The thing that made me happy was probably about 6 months ago, quite a few people came up to myself and Eric and Bobby saying, hey, we love coming to this event because, you know, no one's here trying to sell us anything, and everyone's just kind of hanging out, talking and trying to help each other and do deals, or just maybe somebody needs something, and you know, and you may not need it now, but later on, I could call Steve, he's got this, or send Steve over to him, you know, and it you know, it's life's what you give, not what you get. You know?
Yep.
And so on one hand, yes, you're putting forth and putting effort into bringing these people together so they can share ideas, so they can learn from each other, they can network together. But then I guess there is the ancillary benefit for you, of course, which is that when it comes time that you're looking to fund a deal, that you've met a network of 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 people that would be at least open and willing to have the dialogue about investing in real estate, or they have their own network of people, correct, too, that you bring them on.
Or you could
so
bring
that's the ancillary benefit, of course, that, right?
Yes, and it all feeds itself, you know. You know, for me, as long as it's positive and everyone's helping each other, it's not what I initially set it up for. It was just, like I was telling you before, where everyone was trying to, you know, sell us something at the end of the meeting. I just said, I just didn't, that was a big turnoff for me. I wanted a place for people to go, where they could go and talk about it and maybe kind of work through whatever they're needing, or maybe they need some more information about, there's this guy, Ed Milet, that I follow quite a bit, and his book, The Power of One More, says, you're one phone call, one text, you could be one person, one meeting, one opportunity away, so just do one more. Mm-hmm. So, if you go to that one more networking event, hey, that might be, hey, I met Larry. Hey, he's got exactly what I need. Wow,
Sure.
Or, and you never know where it's going to go. But
I think just like for that networking event, some of the benefits is just like you're just there. You're just with people, and when they need you, you're available. It's the same for like a lot of the marketing work we do, right? Like even this video, we're sending it to people, and they may not find value in this today, but 6 months from now, they just think about it, see it, and you're just like, oh, Jerron or Larry or Scott, I should just connect with these guys real quick. I'm trying to do something like this.
It's putting yourself in the right place, and the timing oftentimes works out. It's the right place at the right time, and especially things like this, like YouTube or a regular meetup event. At some point, there is going to be the right time for you. Someone's going to bring you the deal. Scott, I want you to be a part of my team for my 120 unit. I've got an amazing deal here. Let's bring this on. So I get that.
You never know what you really need. You might, what I need now could be completely different. Because later on, these other opportunities may come up as a result of those relationships, and you may not even have ever even thought of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've set, for years, I set all these goals, and usually at the beginning of the year, it's completely different from the end of the year. It's
Good
either
point.
I crushed all these things, or I was like, I was thinking, a lot of times it's like I was thinking way too small. Like if I just get this, I always thought, I bought a house and I rent it. If I get 10 houses in 10 years, I'm good. And then I bought a 13 unit, and I'm like, okay, all right.
You got 13 units?
13.
I'll be on my 10.
Okay. All right, well, maybe we should get 10 of these. And then syndication, 10 of these, and then.
Sure.
And then it's just keeps getting bigger and better.
That's a good point. A lot of people think too small, right? I think as you become an entrepreneur, you begin to be aware of that. Yeah. That's
every time you get into a bigger room, you go, oh, well, I made it here, but this guy, oh man, he's in that room, and then the room, and then the world gets smaller because now all these people that are doing all these amazing things. And I've always been somewhat of an optimist. I'm a pretty positive person, and it's, when you hear all this doom and gloom from everyone, it just means, for me, I'm thinking in the back of my head, well, there's one more person that's not, that I don't have to worry about because they're not going to be doing anything. It's going to be wide open for me. There's just more and more stuff.
Here's something I say to John all the time as we work on our YouTube channel and these other things. It's like, it's, and it's hard to like grow. So I'm just like, John, this is great. It's hard.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be really hard for everyone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's
easy. Everyone would be doing it.
Right. So let's and we're deep in this. Let's keep pushing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And looking back on this, whatever it was, you started your channel first before this one a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I remember we were having lots of dialogue about how difficult it is, and the different metrics around it and the technical aspects of it. But once you kind of you just keep persevering. One more. You keep the one more.
Well, I watched that guy Alex Hormozy a lot.
Love him.
I love him. He's like, look, just start doing it, because when you start doing it, you're gonna suck. And just try not to suck. Just keep doing it.
A little less each time.
He said, just keep doing it till you don't suck. Because I started doing a video blog or whatever, and I laughed so hard and I watched him with my kids and my daughter saying, these are terrible. It's like, so monotone.
Dad, you suck.
I don't see any of your personality or anything there. And it's like, these are terrible. Why are you doing this? And it's like, well, obviously because it upsets you.
I'm only doing this to make
That's
it ruin your life. I'm going to show all your friends in school.
So you can look it up later on when you're on that first date. Here's your dad.
Yes.
But if you don't, just try to keep doing it. Another guy I follow is that guy, Mr. Beast, and he said, just don't try to do it all at one time. Like maybe this time try to make a better title or a better subject,
right.
a better content, or maybe try to enunciate better or communicate better, and just do one of those things each time or each week, and then eventually it'll all be in there. So and he said, look, if the reason why you're not getting any hits or likes is because your videos suck. It's not because it's not the algorithm or the channel or anything. It's because your videos are
It's simple. It's so simple.
If you make good videos, you'll be good.
Yeah. It's good.
There's an ex-Navy SEAL, Jocko.
Oh,
right?
He's great too. Yeah.
And so he says something about how his people come to him and they say, oh, this bad thing's happening. And he always responds, good.
Good.
Right?
Yeah, good.
So we do that internally. It's like,
Yeah.
good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Everything's, the building's on fire. Good.
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 Yeah.
You're going to learn something from this.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you survive.
Yeah.
So of any other real estate deals that you're considering now looking at, or you just kind of just take them as they come, anything, just to kind of wrap up the real estate investor
currently
portion?
I'm working on a deal of storage deal. Unfortunately, it's a 506B, so I can't really talk about it too much because there's the difference between a 506B. It's a Reg D offering, which is a 506B and a 506C. C, you can solicit accredited investors only. 506B, you can do accredited and non-accredited. I believe it's 35 non-accredited, but you cannot advertise. It's only you have to have a developed relationship with
previous
these people,
relationship.
You wouldn't want to
and
put
that's
this out
kind of a
on
gray
YouTube,
area,
right?
so you really can't blast
Understood.
it out. So I can't really talk about. But
well, how about we just talk conceptually about the self-storage and why you like it?
Well,
and those types of deals.
These particular ones are new development, and right now we're in kind of a fuzzy area where a lot of retail investors are kind of fearful, but private equity is there on the sidelines. They're ready to go with all kinds of money sitting there, and new development for generally self-storage takes about 9 to 12 months, and then the other one that I'm involved with as well, it's a 506C. They have a company, a large REIT, that's going to come in and manage it, and they're potentially going to buy it after a couple of years of it being stabilized.
Yeah.
So there's that option, and to me it has less risk. Granted, you have to build it and raise all the money and do all those things. It has to be in a good area, but feasibility studies have been done, and there's with self-storage, there's no tenants. You don't have to, it's kind of a luxury. People have enough stuff that their extra stuff they're putting into a storage. They don't pay the bill after a month or whatever the time frame is for that.
Get them out.
For that state. You put a lock on it, you sell the stuff, and then you rent it again. It's more dynamic in that it's kind of a month-to-month thing. They can terminate at just about any time, but provided you have a growing area, and a lot of businesses there, corporate headquarters, the same things you do when you're researching a multifamily area or, even single family, a growing area, high employment, lots of good businesses moving there. Those kind of things make it a great area to where it's going to be stable, and it'll just continually go up until the thing with self-storage is that when it gets to a certain amount where there's too much self-storage in the area, it becomes saturated. I believe generally it's like 8 square foot per capita.
Interesting.
But once you get over that threshold, it's probably you should have sold out and moved to a different area. It's great to be an expert in an area, but at a certain point, every area is going to time out. Even with with multifamily or residential, every area goes through its heyday. Look at Detroit. It was the 50s. It was booming. So was Buffalo, and now Buffalo is kind of coming back up again a little bit, and Detroit's kind of coming back, but it went through a pretty bad area when, it had one industry there, the car industry, and when that went down,
Yep.
it took everything with it.
I tend to agree with you just to an extent. On the other hand, though, I would just counter that with, for example, because our expertise is South Florida here.
Yeah.
they're really not building any more workforce housing here. They just don't do it. There's no more supply coming, and it's undersaturated.
Well,
There's a high need for it, and so when we focus on kind of the class, let's call it B minus to C kind of housing, it's they're just, the demand is, significant, and they keep building this Class A housing around here, apartments and condos, and there needs to be a workforce to service these people.
There is kind of there's a reason why they're only building Class A's, because that's the only thing that pencils out.
I agree.
The cost to build
I agree.
B and C is astronomical compared
Absolutely.
to the rents you're going to get. So it won't work.
I agree.
Unless they do some type of tax abatement for the Class A. And they say, okay, 20% has to be, because I've seen that.
Sure,
actually
they're doing
in Texas, they're doing that. 20% has to be the workforce housing and stuff like that. And I would say that, to your point, that is absolutely true, because it really, the only way you're going to do a Class B or C is if you're doing a value add. You're buying an older building
and turning it from Class C to B.
And then you'll probably see some of the areas go to where you can have additional units in the back. California's doing that a lot. They'll probably start doing it here a lot more.
We got upzoned on one of our buildings. We bought an 8, and we were turning it into a 12.
You were telling me that, and that's great.
Yep.
But those are like little sort of tweaks on the fringes.
Well,
there's I don't know what the actual demand is. I haven't seen a feasibility study for workforce housing here, but I can only imagine that there's a need for thousands and thousands of units
at a certain
corridor here.
At a certain point, all those people will start moving somewhere else because they can't afford to live here.
Yes and no, and they do. You see a flow of it, but there's just always so again, someone here in, let's say, Boca Raton or East Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach, or and as these neighborhoods get even nicer, like Palm Beach Gardens and Jupiter, just the prices going up. Someone's got to work at the restaurants and the bar. Someone's got to be a busboy there. Someone's got to, work at the McDonald's.
There's got to be an area that's within 30 minutes or so where people can.
And there's really not. The closest thing I'd say is Okeechobee, which is an hour from maybe over an hour from Boca. So
until the robot.
Port St. Lucie is an hour and a half.
Yeah, so, that's the thing is you can't really build those new anymore. So there's going to have to be some type of programs. And I have a friend of mine in Texas. He does Section 8 housing, but he does it, in a nice area where the schools are good, and he takes like the top, 1 or 2%, because there's a backlog of people that want to move,
of course,
out of these areas, and generally, he gets someone that's, a working mother or working father with older kids. So they're just moving there because of the high school or something like that, because where they live is probably not that good. And I think you're going to see a mix of all these different solutions, like, extra unit up, up units, probably some kind of abatement. So because you don't have to pay capital gains or taxes for, if you do 20% of the Class A deal. There's going to have to be a mix of solutions, because there's not going to be any one-stop shop for any of it, because we don't really have any more land.
Right, exactly. That's the point. And just the last point on that is when you compare somewhere, let's say here in South Florida with workforce housing versus, let's say, I don't know, I don't exactly know the market, but let's say Phoenix or Las Vegas or places in Texas. They have tons of land. And that's why you see these huge upswings in prices and then crazy downswings that we saw a bit of that in the last year and a half. Yeah. We don't see that here. There's been no real downswing in pricing. It's because there's just, you can't build anymore, and there's no more supply, and the demand is still there, if not increasing.
Yeah. And the thing that I'm looking at a lot over the next couple of years is that one, there's lack of supply. Two, the people's personal debts are at all-time high, so that's going to come into play, and just the overall sentiment of everyone, like, will they start moving somewhere else? Because you see I see where I live now in Jensen Beach, a lot of people from here are moving up there.
Sure.
It's more affordable. When I moved up there almost 3 years ago now, my taxes, insurance, all my bills went to about a third. of what it is. And now it's gone. You know, my insurance doubled in the last 2 years.
And that's Martin County, Jensen.
Yeah,
Martin.
Martin
So
County.
people that don't know, Palm Beach County is very expensive, but then when you cross the border into Martin County and Stewart and Jensen, prices come down significantly. Cost of living, taxes. Yeah.
Well, now that it's one of the fastest growing counties in Florida, so now it's going to get.
It's the next Palm Beach County in 10 years.
Another 5 years, it's going to be saturated, and then I'll be moving
St.
all the way
Lucie
back
and
to
Fort
North
Pierce.
Carolina, New York, whatever. New York will be cheap, probably.
Everyone will have moved out to Florida. They'll all be here.
Long Island again.
The circle, you go to Jamaica, where you're born. I would love to hear about this new e-commerce.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Well, this is a recent venture. Myself and my partner, Benjamin Cohen, he was how I met him was he was on working for the team with the Houston deal, QC Capital. He was in acquisitions. He's really good at underwriting. He's a young guy, and he was into e-commerce for the last 3 years. He's been doing this, and I talked to him, got to know him quite a bit, and he's a very sharp individual. But I told him initially that the biggest downfall for him is that he's very young and he looks young. So
need that gray hair, baby.
Yeah. But
I got the baldness, so I'm working on that. Yeah. You guys got the gray hairs.
Very sharp. And he showed me the returns that was coming, and at first I didn't believe it. I said, well, let me just buy one of these. And it took a little while to get it all squared away. But I've had it for about 3 months now, and it's exceeded my expectations.
Is it like a Shopify business?
Yes.
That's what it is?
It's a Shopify platform. So it's basically how it works with Shopify is that you own the business, you just use their platform.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, they own all the data, they own everything. So if they decide to go into a different direction, you just have to do what they're doing. That's what happened a lot with Ben and some other guys I knew that had e-commerce stores. Is they were drop shipping stuff from Amazon to their Walmart stores. They were making a lot of money doing that. Amazon got wise to it, and they shut all the drop shipping down, so they got stuck with a bunch of stuff in the Amazon warehouses that was the same price as everybody else. So
I had my buddy that was making a lot of money on books.
Yeah.
He had a warehouse full of books, and then he was putting them in the Amazon warehouse too, and they ended up taking just confiscating his books because they weren't. I forgot what it was, but they had to be somehow like authorized by Amazon.
Yeah.
Essentially, I heard it actually got on the radar of Jeff Bezos, like because he was doing he probably goes through some of the people that have crazy spikes in business
margins
and
really
said
high.
let's get rid of these people and let's get into this business and what we're going to do.
And
which he started in books, but I guess there's just different types of books or different.
There's
I don't know.
so many different things. The particular model is kind of product agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
What's done is there's a lot of Ben with his management team. They run a lot of ads, and they do they focus. They do a lot of testing. They do all the R&D. They do all the shipping and everything. So basically, what I'm doing is I just kind of watch what they're doing, and then I move the money around in and out. If they say buy more, you buy more. You're paying the bills. They basically are managing the whole thing. And
they meaning
him and the team.
It's your partner and the team. Got it.
And he's got his management.
And he's got history in this.
Yeah, he's been doing this for 3-4 years, and awesome. I've watched all the stores that he has, and they have some of them are in Europe. The one particular one I have is in Italy, and he has a lot of other stores in the U.S., which this is the biggest consumer base in the world, really.
Sure.
And those are more where you focus on branding and stuff like that, where you can build a brand, and then there's an exit strategy in 3-4 years. You get an equity multiple on that.
Yep.
Whereas the ones in Europe are just kind of buy and sell stuff, and it's more of a cash flow play.
Interesting.
And you've owned it now for about 3 months, and about how long is it going to take till you pay back your capital?
It'll probably be by the time, probably around June, but we had kind of an unprecedented final quarter, which that's always pretty big, but it'll probably be June, July. It'll be.
Because you sold a lot more product.
Yes,
of things
there's a
you
lot
didn't
more
necessarily-
orders to where we had to shut down the ads for a little bit to,
Oh my
to
gosh.
catch up the orders.
Good problem to have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought I wasn't complaining.
Yeah.
Good.
So how did you like? I've looked into this like at a very high level with friends that don't know what they're doing on this stuff. And you did the right path. You got a guy that knows what he's doing. So how did you source this deal? Like Ben found it, or
it was all through him. What he does is he finds usually existing ones that are kind of dormant. They're already kind of set up, and he has all the connections with all the bands, all the brands, and the warehousing, and everything else. So they do everything start to finish, and he's a very sharp guy, and makes all the deals. And then once we buy it, it costs a certain amount for the management company to set all the stuff up and set up all the ads and the accounts. And then there's a certain amount of working capital that you have to put in, that you have to keep in there, because when stuff kind of starts hitting, you need to be able to buy a certain amount. And they buy like in increments weekly rather than a lump sum, so you don't get stuck with, like you're saying, with the books and stuff.
Awesome.
So weekly you might buy 200 instead of buying 1,000.
Okay.
And then it goes in progression there.
and so you, based on your relationship, he kind of took you under his wing to a degree.
Yeah, he said, well, because originally how this all started was that since he was working for a company doing acquisitions for multifamily, we were like, well, let's start a fund with these e-commerce, and we just actually had a meeting yesterday about it, and we're starting the fund for
Very cool.
e-commerce, so that we can bring more people in, and do it at scale, and take the proceeds and buy more real estate.
It's all about the real estate.
Yeah. Long term, like what is it? Kiyosaki says the only reason why you're in business is to buy real estate.
I love that.
It's true.
And I think that's a good place to stop.
Yes. Right. Yep.
Right there.
That's what we do.
Yeah. That's it. Amen. And that's why I'm in business.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why I'm a realtor. Cool. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for taking the time.
No problem.
Appreciate it. This was great. I had a great time.
Yeah, really
Thank
good
you
stuff.
for having me.
Yeah, of course.
It's fun.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for tuning in again. This is, again, the Real Deal Podcast. If you like the content, hit the subscribe button, give us a like, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.